I'm making this video for anyone who wants to fly an F-16 on X-plane and who wants to use navigation and go from one point to another. This is kind of making me dizzy. The nice thing about the F-16 is it's a ubiquitous military jet in the world, not just the United States, but in the world. The minus part about it is this is an F-16C, which probably came out in the early 1990s, which means you're very limited as far as navigation goes. The F-16C, that I'm not sure who the manufacturer is that made this one, but is even more limited because these days all of the points of reference that don't have any names, those are the GPS waypoints that a lot of people use. Let me see, the GPS waypoints that a lot of people are using on the Zibo mod and to navigate on VATSIM. And so seeing that you can't see the names of any of those until you're very, very close, it becomes very difficult to navigate using this mode. So that's out. The best way I've found to navigate with this plane is using VOR. The simple way to use VOR is there's a couple different ways to do it. One way is to use SkyVector, which is what some people use for flight planning. Here I have a flight from from St. Louis to Columbia. It's a pretty quick flight, 20 minutes in this plane. So you won't have to tolerate my voice for very long airborne. But you get the point. The navigation is pretty simple. You can do it at any weather, day, night. I wonder what this is. Hold on a second. Flight advisory. I'll have to avoid that while I'm flying. Anyway, take off from Lambert, you fly here. It's pretty simple. This gets a little more complicated because right here the Brock 5 is I'm trying to get them straight, is a SIDS, so it's a standard instrument departure from Lambert. And the way you get to fly it is you fly from Lambert and then you fly to, I believe it's this point right here. Yep. Which, number one, it's not on the map, which you're not really going to use the map anyway because, well, you're going to use the map a little bit. Number two, how can you possibly find it using this when you have to navigate from here to find it? Right. So we're going to take the VOR off. Even with the VOR off, you can't even find it. So if you take this compass heading, whoops, that's way too far. Man, I'll have to edit this later. So in theory, you can take this departure and this compass heading to Brock 5, and then that'll take you to the Hallsville VOR. And from the Hallsville VOR, then you can turn this way. However, seeing that you can't find Brock 5, using this, we're just going to have to go in that general direction, or we can modify this course to go up to the St. Louis VOR, which would be right here, St. Louis Vortec VOR, and then I believe it gives you, no, it doesn't give you a heading. It gives you Lindy 6, which is the departure. So if we take that out, and we take this out, and we hit enter, now all of a sudden it becomes a VOR navigation map. So print this off, do what you have to do, but it becomes very easy to fly with the F-16. If you want to, you can come in here and you can find the SID for Brock 5, which would be very difficult to fly, seeing that it's all radio waypoints or GPS waypoints. You can fly it according to how far you're going, but seeing that the GPS waypoints are very small, you can't see them anyway, and so you're almost on top of them. So they work very well for landing, but they don't really work very well for takeoff. And even if you're using them for takeoff, or even if you're using them for landing, you're going to be juggling those waypoints and changing back and forth if you're on VATSIM, And so I've flown like 2 flights using the F-16 on VATSIM. And I want to fly more, but I need to develop a system to do it. So this is the best system I know how to do it. When we're landing in Colombia, we're just going to say we're going to come in from the north. And so we're going to use, well, let me see, that's not going to work. We're just going to use an ILS approach on 2. So we're going to have to make some notes here. So we're going to have to come in from the south, and we're going to say ILS is 110.7, which is up here. That's the localizer. But in order to fly the localizer, you need to come down here, grab the localizer, and come in. 02, that would be north. Just making sure. So we can fly Hallsville, we can overfly it and then come down here, or we can fly to Hallsville and make the turn early and cut through here, and this is what a lot of commercial aviators do. Now, granted, I'm not sure what kind of point that is, but that's going to be very difficult to get. So here's 02 from the south. So 02, then we can use DME navigation, and at this point 7.1 miles away from landing, then we can see we need to be at about 2,700 points, or 2,700 feet, or 2,700, I forgot if it's AGL. Someone's going to correct me, I'm sure. If it's AGL or barometric, I believe it's, I don't know. Not quite sure at this point. So we're going to go ahead and write this down, 110.7, and this is the 2 ILS localizer for Columbia KCOU, and we'll get that ready to go. The next point we need to keep in mind is the Hallsville point, and so we see on the map that Hallsville is 114.2. If we want to cheat, we can go ahead and find that on the X-plane map as we fly, but if we want to fly according to, flight planning, if you were flying, you could look at this map or you can just write it down. So Hallsville, I believe, is HVL, or I'm sorry, HLV. So we're gonna find that about probably 20 or 30 miles out of St. Louis, because it's only a 100-mile flight. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to write down the Columbia VOR, because Columbia actually has a VOR here, which is pretty cool. So 110.2 would be KCOU, or you could just say KSTL-KCOU. And then the last number we're going to write down is the St. Louis VOR. So that would be 117.4. And if you fly in St. Louis quite a bit, you can almost tattoo that on your arm, which will be pretty cool. But only a designated few people in the world would know what you're talking about. Okay, so we're going to jump in the plane and then get rid of that garbage and go straight to here. So right here, this is the map. If we get in even a little closer, we see that's Lambert International Airport in St. Louis, and that's the STL VOR. I'm not sure for certain how far they are apart, but they're about 12 miles apart. So we're pointed east right now. So what we're going to do, I guess that's, I'm sorry, no, that's wrong. That would be Lambert's VOR, and then that would be that would be Lambert as the airport. Yeah. And that would be the Lambert VOR, which is different than the STL VOR. So we're going to take this path. We're going to, actually, let's go back here. Since we're pointing east, we're going to go ahead and take off from here, take a gentle turn to the left. We're going to find the STL VOR, and then we're just going to point ourselves down course 281. So we'll remember that. I'm writing this down. 281, outbound STL VOR. fly this for 74 miles. But what we're going to do is we're going to cheat. We're going to fly this halfway, and then we're going to dial into the Hallsville VOR and just point directly at Hallsville, and then we can either turn at Hallsville or we can talk to the controller, which we don't have controllers, and we can cut early, put the Columbia VOR on there, and then go around to the south and come in. Normal course is that I believe they cut through here and then come around to the south and come right in, but we can go ahead and make a decision. We're not going to be flying this plane on VATSIM, although I really like to, but I'm just too nervous to do it, and I really want to focus more on the navigation side than anything else. We're going to take off in the early morning just because the light is really beautiful, and Missouri looks much better in the morning. So we're going to turn VOR on over here. We're going to look around the cockpit for just a moment here. These are our radios over here. So we have our nav1, nav2, com1, com2. Our nav1 and nav2, you can use this little thingy right here to switch back and forth between nav1 and nav2. I haven't learned how to use the GPS yet. I haven't really seen a function in that, although please someone prove me wrong and send me a link. The nice thing about this also is if you press this right here, you can change back and forth between them. That toggles back and forth, or you can, I believe there was a way you can select them to have them both play, but maybe I'm wrong. And then the same thing true with nav1 and nav2, but nav1 and nav2 you can have them on all the time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and find the STL VOR. So that would be 117, and we're sitting on the runway, by the way. There it is, the STL VOR, 117.4, it's already in there. And then we're going to dial in the Hallsville VOR, so that would be 114.2. This is kind of fun on the ground, but it's no fun in the air. Hallsville VOR 114.2. So we're going to go ahead and turn it to the STL VOR first to be number 2. We're going to look down here and we're going to see that we're 8.4 miles away from the STL VOR. If we change our course and point this way, the course is going to change to show our direction from our current location to I forgot what that's called, the routing. It's just the degrees on the compass to get us to the St. Louis VOR. So we're just going to leave this set here at basic, but what we're going to do is we're going to take off and fly around in a circle, so we'll probably get there that way. We're going to go out here and change this to Hallsville VOR, and we're too far away for the Hallsville VOR for our radios to get a signal from there, so we're going to go just turn that to channel 2. This over here, if you really want to, which might as well just do this right now, we can go ahead and change our speed here. Get this a little closer so you can see it. This is our speed, and this is our autopilot section. We're just going to put it here for like 320 or so. Maybe we'll just make it fast. That works for me. We're going to level out at about 25,000 feet or so, or 30,000 feet, so that'll be cool. So we'll just say 30,000 feet, and we'll do a Viking takeoff here in a minute, just because we're military and we're not flying in VATSIM right now. We're going to make this an odd number. I forgot if it's odd or even. Someone's going to correct me online, I'm sure. We'll just say 30,000 feet, and I believe that's correct for west, but I'm probably wrong with this, but I just don't want to look it up right now. Actually, no, we don't have to look it up right now. We're going to do heading, let's just say 270, and that points us in general direction. If you throw a rocket from St. Louis at 270, you're going to hit the middle Missouri area. This is the navigation right here, flight director, but we're not going to turn that on right now. So now we're ready for takeoff. The F-16 has auto flaps, which is pretty good and pretty bad. It just is what it is. This right here is our landing lights. We're going to turn the landing lights on and make sure everything's good. We don't really have to check a lot on the F-16 because it's pretty automatic. So right now we see our compass heading 122, and then I'm going to just make this quick full screen. Actually, we don't need that other screen, so we'll just go ahead and change the graphics setting over to full screen. And we don't have any objects. I don't have a really big graphics card right now, but hope that'll change. So we're all set to go. Again, we are not on the VATSIM network right now, so we can fly whatever speed we want. But if we were on VATSIM, we would be restricted to under 250 knots, under 10,000 feet, and then over 250 knots up to, they say, 0.95 Mach over 10,000 feet, at least over land. Over the ocean, that's a different story. So we're going to go ahead and do a Viking takeoff. I saw the windsock over there on the left. We're going downwind slightly, but there's not much wind here. This is not a Zibo 737, by the way. So now we're going to look back and look at the airport and say goodbye, St. Louis. Just because we can. So we're going to level off. And we're just going to point the plane in a general direction. At 12,000 feet, we're above all of St. Louis traffic. I believe you can do an unlimited takeoff like we just did on VATSIM, but you would just need to ask controller for, I forgot what the term is. Someone can bring it up there. So we're going to look at our heading. Whoops, 06. We don't want to be going 06. We're going to turn our heading over here. Actually, this over here to point us to the point us to the St. Louis VOR. I don't know why I'm nervous around you guys. That bell says that we're going through Mach 1. We're going transonic. Our altimeter is over here, so we can actually look down and do full navigation while we're flying. We're 8 miles away, so we're pretty close to things. 7 miles away. Hopefully I'm not making anyone sick. So once we go through here, we're going to take a heading of 281. But let me see, 18,000 feet, so we're about 2.5 miles up right now, so we should be crossing in any minute now. So if we wanted to, we could just take a heading of 281 right now. That's the reverse. So since we're heading away, we'd be outbound 281. And then we're going to head toward the line. This will make sense in a second. There we go. So now we're outbound 281 and we have a good course. This isn't good because we're almost 3 miles up. Actually, we are 3 miles up, so it's going to move around a little bit. Give ourselves a little throttle. We're going to wait for it to change, and then we'll just go ahead and take a heading at 281. Actually, we'll cut over so we cross over the 281 radial, and you'll see it come over pretty quickly because we're right on top of the VOR. And we don't want to micromanage this, but we can fine tune it later. But we're going to be pretty close to the 281 radial going out. So we'll go ahead and change our compass setting to 281. 30,000 feet. Look at that, the sun's coming up. Go ahead and turn the autopilot on. Lock in our speed. Lock in our heading. Lock in our vertical speed. Since we are underneath it, we'll go ahead and increase that, but we're not working with controllers right now, so we can be pretty lenient in a lot of these things. Just for the sake of speed, we're going to kind of push it out a little bit. So we'll probably go supersonic here in a minute. Once you're in the system here, it's pretty genius. People think it's nice pressing these and working these, but at the same time, this is old school working the button, working the knobs. So that would be Mach 1. Change the course, and right now we want to head our course at 281, and to change our physical heading in the plane, all we have to do is turn the heading knob, and it'll automatically come in here, which is pretty cool. Now we don't have to hunt around for the button, because the button's pretty tough to find. So over here, we're wondering how fast we're going. I forgot if it's stat. Nope. Engine, fuel. So here's our fuel system over here. We do not see a ground speed here. This doesn't have I don't believe we have a ground speed in the F-16, but please someone put in the comments if they find it differently. This is our endurance, 1.1 hours, which translates into 624 miles. So we're currently going outbound to review, outbound 281, heading 281 from the STL VOR. We're going to go outside the plane for a second, see what it looks like. So we should be able to see Lambert vaguely right here. This is kind of an old airport, and it's very close to the STL VOR. This is the Mississippi River, and this is the Missouri River. And so navigating into St. Louis, if you can see the ground, is pretty easy. We're almost at 30,000 feet, and we're 30 miles out, so you can still see them pretty easily. To land at St. Louis, Lambert, all you have to do is cut next to the river, kiss that edge of the river, and then bam, you're in. Not to fill your head with too much information, but the ILS approach is inbound to the STL VOR. I believe it's like 40 degrees or something southeast. It's like 220 or something southeast, southwest. You know what I mean? It's southeast from the VOR, and then from the VOR you just cut over to 124 degrees, and then you pop in there. So I fly this quite often. I think we saw Washington Airport over there, and then I believe Herman is over there, and then here's the Missouri River. There's a big bend over here where the Merrimack, not Merrimack is, but where Jefferson City is. It's just too light for us to see I-70, but I-70 be down here. That's Washington, not Washington, Missouri, but Mexico, Missouri, so we're actually getting pretty close. Again, it doesn't take very long. We're 43 miles out, and we've got huge visibility. We're going to go ahead and change over to the Hallsville VOR, and you see how quickly that changed over there. So we're just 33 miles and change out of the Hallsville VOR. We're going to go ahead and change our course. So that shows you we're radial 275. So we'll go ahead and point over to Hallsville, and you can see the plane react. Now, just to give you a sense of what the map looks like at this point, we're going to kill the VOR. We're going to take off airport. Just for argument's sake, we're going to bring in the GPS points. You'll see them now, and then you don't see them. So you kind of have to be fairly close to navigate to them. I think it's a decent tool, but it's not great. It'd be nice if you could see the names or something like this here, or maybe if there was better resolution. I think this is a 2K plane and not a 4K plane, so that might be it. Turn that off, and you're going to bring up the VOR right here. here comes the Hallsville VOR, and that's the Columbia VOR. So again, if we wanted to navigate over to the Hallsville VOR, we can change this up here, or we can change this down below. And we're not going to cheat right now, but if we really wanted to cheat, we could look at the map and see how fast we're going in terms of a Mach number. I don't believe that's our Mach number there, although it might be. So after you fly in a region long enough, you get to know where all the airports are. This right here is very different than this one. This is Fulton, Missouri. This is Jeff City, and this is Columbia. Columbia is very difficult to find during the day because it's basically in the woods. So right now on our map, we're flying over the Hallsville VOR, and if we wanted to be true, do true navigation, we go ahead and put in the Columbia VOR, and we're going to put that in position number 1 and replace the St. Louis VOR. So 110.2. Oh, we messed up. We changed it around. We don't need the Hallsville VOR anymore, so we're just going to go ahead and use the Columbia VOR. So here's the Columbia VOR. You can see it on the map over here. So if we go ahead and change the course, we'd be able to see heading to that. If we wanted to turn that way, we could, but that would be coming down the runway going south. But we're going to use ILS, and ILS is only active from the south side. So we're going to go ahead and fly around the other way. However, since we see it on here, we can go ahead and move that direction. But let's go ahead and overfly it, and we're going to replace the St. Louis VOR. Actually, we're going to flip this around. So 110.2. We're going to put in the Columbia VOR for the first one, and then that's KCOU, and then we're going to go 110.7. And 110.7 would be the Columbia ILS for 02. And I believe the ILS will appear up in here. There it is, I think. So at this point, we probably should kill the autopilot. So we're going to throttle it back most of the way, kill the autopilot, all that goes away. And right now we're going to dial in the Columbia VOR, and we're going to overfly. Wow, we did make a little bit of room there. So right now we're 19.6 miles out of the Columbia VOR again. So we're going to overfly it and then come in from the south. And then we need to drop some altitude. What we may do is we may just fly a parallel course. That makes more sense. We can use dead reckoning since we have unlimited visibility, but we can't see very much right now because it's morning. Barely make out the river. We can fly the river around. If you see the runway over here, the runway points directly to this bend in the river. So if you hit the bend in the river and come straight in, that's one way to do it. But right now we have two forms of navigation down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to change our course to 02. Oh, wait a minute. It's on ILS right now. So that's not going to work. That's okay. Actually, here. So this would be KCOU. We're going to go ahead and change our course. Right now it points directly to the airport, as you can see off our left wing. What I like to do for navigation's sake is we'll go ahead and tune this to the runway. And then no matter if it's inbound or outbound, actually we'll do this. Well, no, we had it the right way. So 0.2, I believe it's a little bit off from that, and we're fine. We're at 11,000 feet still. So we're just going to go ahead and point over to there. And again, we're not flying on VATSIM, so we don't need to worry about speed restrictions. But I believe inbound planes usually fly at about 8,000 feet when they're coming into the area. So we'll go ahead and fly at 8,000 feet. Actually, we'll drop it down. We'll put the speed brake out. And if we look down at the system, we should be coming pretty close right now. But when the needle starts turning, we kind of want to be in our turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to level out around 4,000 or 5,000 feet. And then we're going to start to make a half turn here. Let me just go out. Never mind. We're going to go out and come back in. So that's decent right here. If we were a military plane, I think we'd be fine. 4,700 feet is pretty good. The nice thing also about this plane is it has this right here. This is our vertical speed indicator, VSI. And so we can very easily see it there no matter where we're flying. But I like to keep it fairly wide just so we can keep that in the view. So we're coming around to the VOR. We're 10 miles out, which is kind of a pretty standard approach. We're probably a little on the low side. We'll probably want to be up around 8,000 feet. And we should be lined up for 0.2. So at this point, we're 9.6 miles out on a heading of 0.2, but we got visual on it. So we're going to go ahead and change this over. So now we're switched over to ILS, which we should be in, but I forgot how to use ILS on this, which doesn't really help us, does it? So we're at 250 knots. We're a little on the fast side, but that gives us a little bit of room to bleed off some speed. We're going to go ahead and make a conservative landing. So we're going to go ahead and put the speed brake out. This plane is remarkably tame, by the way, at low speeds. It's a lot of fun to fly. And again, I forgot if this plane has ILS or not, but we're just going to do a visual approach. And I think we have lights on this side, but I forgot. So give a little bit of power. Put the landing gear out. So we're going to have to give it a little bit more power with the gear out. We're going to have to give it a little more power with the gear out. I don't know if you could hear me over the gear coming down. It's pretty loud. We're a little high, so we're going to let the plane fall off a little bit, drop some altitude. We're a little fast too, a little hot, so we're going to put the brake out. I like to be around 160 knots to land this plane, and you kind of have to put the brake on pretty quickly. This is more of a space shuttle landing than anything else, it looks like today. So we'll put the speed brake in. We're going to go ahead and give it a little more throttle. At this point, we're going to look at the vertical speed indicator, which is showing minus 500 feet per minute, minus 500 feet, which is not what we want. So we want around 100 by the time we land, but usually 300 on the way in. Drop it down, pull the throttle back all the way, flare. A little bounce, but not bad. Put our brake on. Welcome to Columbia, Missouri. Well, we kind of overshot that, but we came in a little hot. But you get the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this because I feel kind of bad about overshooting the runway. We can see our path on the map. And if you look at this, this should look remarkably like, if I can get my other stuff, oh that's right, we're full screen. So we'll come in here and we'll go windowed screen, and this is the big reveal. Here we go. So M for map, and this right here looks a lot like this. Well, not this, but the BRAC 5. So we're going to kill this, and I believe, nope, that's not it. But over here would be the BRAC, somewhere around there. But you get the idea. So I hope that helps. I don't think there's a really perfect solution as far as FMS navigation for fighter planes on VATSIM, nor should there be. I'm learning about the TCAN system. That's the way that military planes navigate besides using VOR. But as you see, the VOR system here is really precise and it's really robust and it works really well. Anyway, I hope to be flying military jets soon on VATSIM, and I'll see you out there. Thanks for watching.